Welcome to episode of Start the Week with Wisdom. My name is Bridget Burns. I'm the Executive Director of the University Innovation Alliance.
And I'm Madeline St. Amour. I'm a reporter at Inside Higher Ed.
And each week I partner with a journalist to have a conversation with a sitting college president or chancellor to try and unpack what it's like to exist and live and lead in the midst of this moment, and hopefully to give you some inspiration and perspective for the rest of the week. We know that everyone is leading in different ways, and our hope is that this gives you some sense of positivity to kick off the week. So start the week with wisdom.
This week, we're delighted to bring you a conversation with University of Colorado at Denver Chancellor Michelle Marks. Chancellor Marks transitioned into her new leadership position in the midst of the pandemic, having previously served as the Vice President for Academic Innovation and New Ventures at George Mason University.
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Delighted to be here.
So first, we'll start with just kind of how are you holding up right now? It's been a wild year, and you moved across the country in the middle of all of this. So just how are you doing right now?
Yes, I did. Well, when I was offered the job, we were just entering into the pandemic, and I could not have imagined starting out like this. But here we are. And you deal with the situation, you deal with the hand you're dealt, and I'm doing fine. I'm actually incredibly energized by this community and this institution and the possibilities of the future. But it's definitely not without recognizing the hardship that so many people in this country and right here in our community are going through.
What has it been like transitioning into a new institution, especially as a leader in the midst of this, unique time that we're in?
Well, I think I had to create a new playbook. One of the challenges, obviously, is that all of the ways that you're used to getting to know people and having people get to know you are different, not being able to be in person. So I think just like the rest of the country, I'm Zooming all day long, every day. And I have to get to know people without being able to look people in the eyes and shake people's hands. And that's obviously not ideal, but we are all learning to be much more proficient using technology. And so I'm doing the same. I just completed a 100 days of listening tour, and that tour was done entirely virtually. I had the chance to meet with over 1,000 people in our community, both faculty, staff, students, alumni, but also employers, business leaders, civic leaders. And it was great, actually. It was absolutely fantastic. 60 or 70 meetings, and I learned a ton about the strengths and the challenges and the opportunities ahead.
Are there any things that were particularly useful? I mean, we've all been a part of Zoom, terrible Zoom happy hours, terrible Zoom parties that really don't live up to their name. And I'm just wondering, did you do those one-on-one? Were there any tactics that helped you build trust with folks, despite the fact that this is their new boss and they're staring at them and they might have a kid next to them, they might have their cat in the camera? Just wondering if there's anything that was useful for you.
Well, one interesting thing about Zoom that we've all realized is that you're seeing the whole person that you're talking to come on screen. I mean, you're right, there's the pets, there's the kids, you see whatever's in the back. I mean, I'm at work today, but sometimes I'm coming in from home. And so you get to know what's in the background. You're a little bit more about your employees' lives. So I think in that way, it's been a little more personal to get to ask about names of pets and kids that show up in screen. I think trust, I'm glad that you brought up trust, because I think a lot about trust is the most important thing to start with. And that was the thing I was most worried about, is how do you establish trust through Zoom? I mean, whether you're a university chancellor or whether you're, a team leader, a department chair, that those same trust is an essential foundation before, frankly, doing anything else. And without trust, nobody's going to take risks. Nobody's going to think about possibilities for the future. People are going to hold back. People are going to not want to share information or take feedback. So I'm working on that trust building virtually.
In your new position, as a leader of University of Colorado at Denver, what do you think needs to happen to ensure that we don't lose further ground in supporting low-income students during the pandemic? What do you think yourself and other leaders at similar institutions should be doing to serve those students right now?
Well, we are losing ground with those students. Those are the students that are dropping out right now or deciding not to attend. Those are the students whose parents are working in jobs where many of them have lost their jobs. I mean, I've talked with many of our students who's have lost their jobs or have families lost their jobs, and so they're not able to afford staying in college. And so that is really the question I'm thinking a lot about is what is it going to take to have a more equitable recovery? That is the question. And part of it is being more aware of what students are succeeding and which students are not succeeding, and what does it take? How do we design our institutions to be able to support those students where education is not working for it? A lot of that is affordability, as everybody knows, and finding ways to use financial support and to make education less expensive. But a lot of it is a design challenge, is designing student support around the needs of students, of low-income students, of students of color, for students who are working, for students who are parents. Those are the growing markets, and we need to do a better job of serving them. Bridget, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was just saying such wonderful things. It was so great. You missed it. So what I'm super curious about is in the midst of the pandemic, trying to lead, trying to inspire a team when every day it seems like we're getting messages about exhausted and overwhelmed. So we just got a comment from Jordan about faculty research productivity expectations during this time. And I think that's an important point. But I also, just in general, what we're hearing from everyone is Zoom fatigue, overwhelm, exhaustion. Just being a human being is hard right now. And then it seems like we're also under financial pressure that we can't lower our expectations. And so as a leader, you see all of this and you there's no clear answer for any of it. I'm just wondering if there's any advice or coaching that you're offering that is speaking to that for folks who are at UC Denver.
Well, we are talking about these issues every single day from a number of different facets. First of all, people are working more hours somehow, even though we don't have the same kind of nighttime activities that we used to. The amount of hours that people are putting in, and this is not just administration, this is faculty, and this is staff, especially staff, are more than ever. So I am worried about our community and the burnout and the fatigue. And I'm also worried because we know so many of our employees are parents, and having to work and to take care of kids, especially at exactly the same time, is really impossible. One of the things that we did early on this fall is revised our telework policy to make it possible for our employees to take care of their kids or their parents during work hours, as long as they're able to get their job done. So added more flexibility to our telework policy, which was well received. The other day I was talking to somebody who had a baby earlier this fall and was really able to take advantage of that telework policy change. The mental health is an enormous concern for all of us right now, and we have just made some investments in more student mental health support and counseling services, as well as for employees, because we know that's an issue. And so we've brought on some more services and capabilities and e-counseling services, virtual counseling services, to try to keep up with the increased level of demand that we're seeing in our community. I think another thing is recognizing how hard people are working and just being willing and able to say that we hear how people are hurting and the challenges, and just making sure that people understand that we are not removed from recognizing the difficulties and challenges that everybody is going through right now.
That's helpful. I just think that there is no clear answer. I mean, it just seems like acknowledging the humanity of everyone, and that nobody's got this thing figured out, and as much flexibility as possible. Our old way of thinking about productivity of, you have to be in early and stay late and all of that, it was based on this artificial perspective of what productivity was. And it's not something that we can sustain given everything people are handling. Just like I said, being a person is work right now. So I hope that was helpful for you, Jordan. But yeah, we also are more looking for answers on that, I think, as well. So thanks for that.
So as we're dealing with, trying to help burnout with the people who work for you, trying to help students who are more vulnerable during this time, what lessons from your past or your background are you, turning to right now to help inform your thinking going through this time period?
Well, I had a great job before this one, which was leading innovation at another big public university. And in that job, I worked on issues around moving more programs online and bringing faculty and staff on board with the changes that entailed. And we did some major work with facilitating transfer and partnering with community colleges and designing a new model to support transfer student success, and a number of other changes that involve internationalization. And all of these initiatives were ultimately, very positive initiatives, but they all required a level of change management and bringing faculty along and listening to concerns that the faculty and staff have about these changes and the directions that we were heading in, and even very specific changes to people's jobs. We did some work redesigning student experience, but to make offices less stovepiped and to work together. But even that involved giving up certain practices and bringing on new practices. And I think what I learned is that it's really important to involve many people early on in the imagination phase of designing what could be, and in the designing and building a vision together, and the why, and then also in co-creating a path forward. And I think that experience will help me here as we embark upon some long-term strategic planning next semester, and really broadly engaging our community, both around how to support all of our students better, and frankly, even in terms of the shifts and changes to bring our institution closer to what is needed for the changes that I believe are necessary for higher education to stay in touch with what society needs and what the workforce needs for tomorrow.
That's great. So I'm curious about what you as a leader, I feel like you hit the ground running, right? Was it July that you arrived?
Yeah.
So you're moving across the country, all this is happening. You have recognition of racial injustice, you have COVID, you have folks losing their chancellor, right? Like, so even the folks at UC Denver, it's a lot of transition. I'm just curious about, as a leader, how do you make decisions about how to spend your time to enable you to not just be firefighting all the time? How do you tune out the noise of the daily, whatever the crisis is, to make sure that you're focusing on the right priorities? Is there anything that you do that grounds you that you could give to us? Because I know that's something everyone's struggling with.
Yeah. I think about making sure that at least 50% of my time is spent on strategic issues. It would be easy to get completely absorbed in the day-to-day. I mean, there's so many things that I took on here. I'm a career educator, and I obviously have a lot of experience in higher ed, but coming on, there were some new challenges, like how to buy tests. I mean, how to buy COVID tests. And we're all out on our own in that space. Things that I never thought I'd have to tackle that we had to tackle. and just so many issues with the pandemic and other challenges, economic, financial challenges that could absorb 150% of your time. And early on, I said, I wanted to ensure that at least 50% of my time was focused on strategy and making sure that we were able to not only respond and keep our campus safe while continuing education, but to focus on making sure that we were using this moment to accelerate the changes that, frankly, this institution was already putting in place, but need to move more quickly now so that we set ourselves up for future success. And that specifically, that meant taking myself out of a number of meetings that I could have been in, that they were used to having the chancellor in, but that weren't strategy minded. And also it meant empowering others. I felt like I didn't need to be in every decision. And I was I spent a lot of time thinking about what decisions required me and where, and how other people, as long as we had a sense of where we were heading together, what decisions others could be empowered to make. So those are two things I think that have worked quite well. Structuring meetings so that we're first talking about strategy and then hitting the operational issues on the back end. Those are three things.
One quick follow-up. Do you find that you're frequently in 30-minute meetings, 15-minute, 45? Is there a sweet spot? I just love to get into the tactics of it because I think I'm always just overwhelmed by back-to-back meetings. So is there anything that you find is in terms of actual meeting structure that helps you?
Okay, so this is shifted and iterated as I've gone through the fall, but here's where I am right now. I started out with hour and then they went to 45 minutes and then, and some of them are still 45. The key for me is having at least 5 minutes. And I try, I'm not always successful, but between so that you can stretch or grab a drink or hit the restroom. I mean, honestly, that was hard to do early on. So that's one change I made. And another president of a university in Colorado gave me another tip, which was when meetings are one-on-one, to do them by phone instead of Zoom. And that way, at least you can pace around your office or sit in a different chair for that meeting. So I've started to totally meetings I have with just one other person and do them by phone.
That's great.
Could you talk about what are some of the things that you hope, some of the things that have come from this era of COVID and the pandemic that you think are things we should keep around? And, on the other hand, what things do you hope we get rid of first when we emerge from this time?
Oh, I'd like to hear your answers to that too. But so for me, the telework. So I'm very intrigued by the use of telework right now. And obviously, whatever the future looks like, it probably won't look like everyone teleworking or as many people as are today. But I do think there's more we can do and I know that we've had a lot of our employees saying into the future, are there ways that we can incorporate more teleworking? So that's one area. I also think we need to do more. And this is not just a university comment, but this is a broad general comment on helping managers understand how to manage in a virtual environment. A second thing that I've been, that I would keep around, I hope we keep around, is the way that we're supporting students. We have pivoted to have all of our student support services in a virtual context right now, and even redesigned a website so that it's a one-stop shop. If students need help, they can, talk to one person and get lots of different kinds of help that they need. So I think taking student support and student services out of the 9 to 5 Monday through Friday office context and putting them into a as students need it context is terrific. Even things like virtual orientations, we're doing them. Most universities are doing them now. I don't know that we all have used them as extensively, but boy, it's wonderful to have students from all over be able to join, and it saves money. And of course, a lot of the digital pedagogy and online and the faculty development work in that space is, I think, expanding our capabilities for harnessing the best that we have to support students. The fun part of the question is, what would you give up? And boy, I think tons of things, but the one that jumps to my mind, well, virtual conferences, I think I'd totally give those up. I've been to a number of virtual, I even ran my own virtual conference, my public-private partnership conference. We did virtually last month, and it was great for what it was, but boy, there's just no substitute to camaraderie and the interpersonal connection. Another thing I would give up, I think virtual graduations would be something to give up. There is something so special about seeing families, looking students in the eye, handing them a diploma. And maybe, I don't know, maybe Zoom happy hours I would give up. I'm ready to like sit down with people together. How about you all? What would you give up?
I agree with you about Zoom. Oh, I said the virtual happy hours. I'm like, man, no more Zoom happy hours. Yes, please. I completely agree with you about the virtual graduation. Like, it was nice to be able to experience them from afar while we, instead of nothing, but the emotional piece was just so missing. And virtual conferences, like, everyone keeps iterating, and everyone's trying their best, but it is really that chatting in the back of the room that I miss so much. And at the end of the day, otherwise, just pre-record it and send me the video, or send me the transcript. Like, why do I need to be doing this right now? I find that most people are RSVPing for conferences, not attending, and then just getting the video sent to their email and then not watching it. So that's just kind of what I'm seeing happening. So
yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what I love. I love the fact that we're getting expertise from all over the country to be like this conversation here today. Like, this happened quickly, and you can bring people together and share wisdom and experience. I love that. I hope that stays. But I really do miss the camaraderie and the support, frankly, that we're able to offer each other when we're with each other in person.
that's great. So one last question, I guess, is I'm just curious if there is any, as you're trying to lead in this challenging moment and you're figuring things out, new campus, new life, loving Denver, loving the sunshine, I'm sure. Hopefully you'll have to ski sometime. But I'm just curious about if there are any books, or if there's any source of inspiration that you've used in your past that you're really drawing upon right now. We're always trying to give our audience some breadcrumbs to follow. So has there been any kind of is it books or movies or something that has been useful to you as a leader as you navigate uncertainty?
Well, let's see. Source of inspiration for me, I feel like I get inspired truly every day. I just have to look around at our students and our faculty and staff, and I'm really serious about this. We have a faculty member he's a mechanical engineer, and he who taught in-person classes only, and now he bought himself I'm not going to get the words right here, but a green screen that goes behind you, and wigs, and he acts out like he did a lecture, which I watched. I've been watching his lectures on muscle movement, and he's finding like creative, kind of crazy ways to engage his students in a virtual classroom, to keep their interest and to make his lectures incredibly interesting. And they are incredibly interesting. And that is inspirational, that a faculty member, and he's just one example of so many who've taken this concept of how am I going to keep my students engaged and interested and learning so seriously. I've seen so many examples of staff. I mean, we literally, whoever said higher ed can't move fast, literally in the spring, every institution completely had to reconfigure. We had to go all online, and then the work that faculty and staff did this summer to get us ready to return to campus. We're partially virtual, partially on campus here, and to make it safe involved rethinking how many students could sit in every single classroom on campus, and rethinking literally like how students could walk through campus and be safe and socially distanced, and how we message with our signage. Everybody's job got turned on their heads, and everyone stepped up to the plate and made it happen because they wanted to support our students and they wanted to keep our community safe. If that is an inspiration, I'm finding different examples of amazing stories like that every single day. So that gives me incredible hope that we can do anything that we're challenged to do, and that we can develop our visions for the future. And then we have a faculty and staff and student group that are going to figure out how to get us there.
That is a perfect end. I completely agree. I feel like higher ed, for all the naysayers and the skepticism, boy, they figured it out and disproved any of those prior comments about lack of ability to adapt and evolve. And I just want folks in higher ed to have the confidence that I think they've earned over the past year, and to really kind of take, that's one of the downsides. We don't really take a moment to reflect on how many things that people have figured out, how much has been changed, how much has been adapted, and how much they should be proud of. Because that's how you get confidence, is by reflecting on just how much you figured out, how much you know now. So I think that's really a hopeful and inspiring tone for us to end on. So thank you, Chancellor Michelle Marks. For those who are interested, we have linked Chancellor Marks and CU Denver's information in the Periscope and also the Facebook and the YouTube links. So if you want to follow up and get more information or connect, Maddie, thanks again. Excellent co-host as always. And so thanks again for our audience on Inside Higher Ed and the various streaming channels. We hope you have a wonderful week, and we hope that this gives you a little bit of hope, a sense of possibility and perspective that will hopefully help you be able to lead your team. So thanks so much and have a great weekend.
Thank you.